Screen Slurps.
Hello and welcome to Screen Slurps, the movie review podcast where we discuss everything that is good, that is bad, and that is savage in the world of cinema. I'm Adam Meisner.
And I'm Dash Gearhart. And Adam, this is episode 49. That's right. I'm saying it before episode 50 just to get everybody going, get that hype train
It's
going.
a good heads up.
And I'll say, let's drink to fuck, Adam. Fuck it. Let's drink to you.
You said it.
Let's drink to fuck.
Here's...
So that's right. We're doing Blue Velvet, ladies and gents.
Yep. Here's to your fuck.
Here's to your fuck, Mr. Meisner. That's right. We're doing David Lynch's 1986 Blue Velvet. That's right. A strange classic, but classic nonetheless.
It's a wonderful classic. Honestly, I sound like I'm not excited, but I swear to God, I'm actually very excited. And I love David Lynch's movies, and I'm out of words to even put out there for the excitement I have for this movie, because really it's hard to really put into words the way this movie meshes. And I'd really like to get into more detail, but I don't want to start spoiling things when we start diving into all of it. What can I say? You tell me.
I have something to admit. I have seen this film before, and it was one of the first films I ever saw in film school. And during that experience, it was intro to film, I think. Yeah, that was intro to the film class. We had to meet every Monday night. It was at the Gish Film Theater at my university. And it was this really nice, cozy movie theater that was like a little bit underground, which is really cool. Very beautiful theater. It was a tribute to Dorothy and Lillian Gish. And it was very cozy in there. It was always late at night on Monday. And we went to Blue Velvet, and I'm sad to say that I remember falling asleep during it. It wasn't.
No.
It had nothing to do with Blue Velvet. It was like I fell asleep during other movies too. I did. It wasn't just that movie. It was other movies too that I had.
You couldn't have just taken a nap before you went.
I had classes, and I also was working a part-time job as an AV guy. So college was tough. College was really busy.
It's the hard times.
So this brought back vague memories, but now I've fully retained it because I was very awake and present this time watching it. And I got some new thoughts and feelings that are legit now because I've actually was present.
You stayed awake the whole time. That's good.
I did.
I'm proud of you.
But before we get into that, I gotta ask Adam, like I do every week, which is what has he been side slurping this week? That's right. What has he been reading, watching, playing, or maybe making this past week besides watching David Lynch's Blue Velvet? Mr. Meisner, answer the question right now.
Still trying to play Baldur's Gate 3. It's been a little bit of an off and on relationship with me in that video game because that game is a real dedication of time. And once you start playing, you get a little bit lost sometimes, because when you start trying to make decisions and thinking of what to do next, sometimes you just get a little bit lost and you get a little confused, and then you got to take some time off. And so I'm going to stop trying to explain right there. I took a little bit of time off from Baldur's Gate 3, and I started writing some more music. I started playing some more music, writing and recording some more music, and that felt pretty good. I was trying to do a little bit more neo-soul writing and chord progressions, things like that. That felt really nice to start playing and recording some more original music. So check that out as I start working on some more stuff. And if I get some more stuff online, I will definitely let everybody know on this show. That is for sure. And I've also been watching Hell's Kitchen on Hulu with Gordon Ramsay. DJ,
I thought it was going to be like a Daredevil spinoff.
Wouldn't that be wonderful? Do you ever watch Hell's Kitchen? You ever watch Gordon Ramsay just tell you to try harder at cooking and get your shit together?
No, I have not. Well, I assume it's a cooking show?
Yeah, Hell's Kitchen is a competition show. Honestly, it just feels like you're watching The Real World, only with chefs. And it's a game show. I mean, it's like a reality game show, essentially, where a bunch of chefs compete to be the best chef. And in the end, the best chef is going to be honored essentially with a cooking job for Gordon Ramsay. In this case, they're going to become the head chef for Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen in Lake Tahoe on this season. So whoever wins Hell's Kitchen this season becomes the head chef for Hell's Kitchen in Lake Tahoe. So they're all competing for that. And essentially the whole season, each episode, someone gets eliminated. But it's just crazy to watch all of these chefs compete with one another and hear Gordon Ramsay yelling at them when they cook something. They'll cook up a steak or something and they'll bring it to the counter, and one of the other chefs will tell them, like, that's not cooked all the way, don't take that up yet, but they'll take it up anyways. And then Gordon Ramsay's just, oh, what fucking hell, all of you, come up here, and they all walk up there and he's just like, just feel that, just touch it, and every one of the chefs is just touching it. He's just like, it's undercooked, and like sometimes he just smashes it with his hand, or sometimes he just flings the plate up in the air.
Sounds more like wrestling than real world.
Oh, it's intense. And I just
sounds like WWE wrestling.
What if we worked at a restaurant like that? And what if the head chef or something there talk to you like that when you're cooking a meal? You're like, I think this is good. How about we take that out there? And they're like, what the you think you're doing? That's not cooked all the way. Come on.
Man, I would hate that. Is Gordon Ramsay the Super Saiyan of the Food Network?
I think so.
The one with the frosted blonde tips.
Well, no, not
him?
the Super Saiyan. No, I think you're thinking of like Guy Fieri.
Oh, Guy Fieri.
Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Yeah. I mean, Gordon Ramsay is a Super Saiyan, but he's a different kind of Super Saiyan.
The blonde frosted tips. I was like, I think he's trying to be a Super Saiyan. All right, different guy. Sorry, he's a foodie though. He's a food guy though.
Yeah,
same world.
Gordon Ramsay should be a psychiatrist. We should all just hire him when we're really stressed out, so he can just yell at you and tell you, like, get your shit together, come on,
you're undercooked, feel it, put your hand on there.
Yeah. So if anything, it's a motivational show to just remember, like, okay, yeah, life is worth living, we're all doing okay, we can keep on moving ahead. And other than that, I watched the movie Overboard with Kurt Russell, which is just a ridiculous rom-com.
Oh, wow.
And
that's old, man.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that. Well, I should say it's not old. 80s, right?
Yeah.
I just haven't seen it since I was like a little kid, I should say. It's been a long time since I've seen it, so it feels like an old movie, old movie.
Yeah, that was a strange one. Maybe you and I can talk about that sometime, but that was definitely...
Sure, I'll rewatch Overboard. Definitely
a weird one, but I do love Kurt Russell's acting, and he's just a ridiculous actor, and I enjoyed it. It was definitely interesting, and hearing a child talk like Kermit the Frog was also good. Just, hey, Mom, my name's Joe.
I do like Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell's cool.
But yeah.
Awesome. Anything else you've been slurping, dude?
Nah, that was pretty much my week. What have you been up to?
I've been just neck deep into Final Fantasy 15. I've been playing the game a ton. I love that game. So sorry, Fire Emblem. I'm not cheating on you, Fire Emblem.
It's just a new love.
I'm polygamous when it comes to video games, and one of my many loves will still always be Fire Emblem Three Houses. It always has a special place in my heart. But right now, I'm very focused on Final Fantasy 15. I love it. I've been reading, there's a lot of disrespect for it online, a lot of mal opinions. I disagree with them. If anything, I'm going to say it may be too short of a game because I think I'm nearing the end. I've been talking to my sister a lot about it because she's played all the way through it before, and I think I'm almost done with it already. It is so cool. It has lived up to my expectations. There's this part where like we have to go to this like island kingdom called Altisha, and then we end up like, I mean, spoilers, everybody. You haven't played Final Fantasy 15, you don't want to be spoiled it. There's like this like god, the Leviathan shows up, and I have to like become a god to fight him, and I end up like learning how to fly and blade warp all over the place and fight this water dragon, and it's still a road trip movie, and I'm still trying to take back my kingdom, and then there's a time jump 10 years into the future, which is just like, holy shit, this is crazy. It's so good. So, damn. And the story is like, It's not the most unique story, but it feels so good because it takes place in a modern day setting. So therefore it feels kind of real. I mean, they all have smartphones, there's cars, you know, there's hotels, there's rock and roll, there's trains, you know, there's still regular like skyscraper cities, but you have like this fantasy, I don't want to say like dressing over it. And it feels like, oh, this could be real, you know.
It sounds like they could make it a Netflix series.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So speaking of Netflix, I also watched, which is now on Netflix, Kingsglaive, which just came, which is so crazy. I was just looking for it like a week ago, but as of this past weekend, it was released on Netflix, Kingsglaive, which is a prequel to Final Fantasy 15. It's a prequel movie starring Sean Bean and Aaron Paul. And she played Cersei in Game of Thrones. Fantastic actress. Lena Headey. Lena Headey. And she plays one of the main characters. I gotta say, this is my personal opinion, it is a beautiful film. It's gorgeous. The thing is, I don't know why they had some rando douche be the main character. That has nothing to do with the game. It has nothing to do with it. And even though the king in it does have, it's Noctis' father. Noctis is the main character in Final Fantasy 15. He's in it, which I love that. And Sean Bean plays him, he's great. Lena Headey plays Noctis' fiance, Luna, and she's fantastic too. But then like you have this douchebag, which Aaron Paul plays. And keep in mind, I love Aaron Paul. I'm a huge Aaron Paul fan. I love Breaking Bad. But his character is so douchey. And he's got one of those stupid like, hey, I'm a Viking. I'm going to do a side shave. I'm a Viking. And like, what? Like, I really don't like those people.
But doesn't Aaron Paul play a great douchebag? I mean, come on.
He does play a really great douchebag, even though he's not a douchebag. He does play. He has a like, yeah, bitch. Like he has that like douchebag. Like I mean, that's what he would say in Breaking Bad all the time. Like,
yeah. He
does have like a douchebag voice, but he's not a douchebag. He just plays one well. And this guy is such an asshole. And like I don't know why. There's like 4 main dude characters in Luna and the King. They're the main characters. Luna's like the Oracle, and you have the King. You have plenty of main characters to tell a backstory on. You would tell a prequel story. Anyway, it looked like it cost them millions of dollars to make this. The story sucks, and it's something that you see in a very small scene in the game, and you don't need to see more of it. And it's just like this. Why am I wasting my time with? Period. With that, I also watched another, is my last side story, by the way. I also watched another piece of content that adds to Final Fantasy 15. It's called Final Fantasy 15 Brotherhood. It is an anime. It's 5 short episodes of 15, 16, 17 minutes, very short episodes. But it's an anime, beautifully animated anime. And it's all about Noctis. And he's the prince that's really, he's supposed to be king after his dad gets killed. And he is with his friends, who is Gladio, or his full name's Gladius, Prompto, and Ignis. And it tells a backstory, a prequel story about each of their relationships and how Noctis's relationship is with each of these guys who are basically his brothers. They're considered his bodyguards or whatever, but there's this character named Sid, and he's like, no, they're not your bodyguards. They're your brothers. Treat them as so. And it's so good. There's very heartwarming moments. There's very like action packed moments, and they pace it out so well. And it feels like, it feels like these scenes actually happen in the game. They're so true to the game. It is so much better than Kingsglaive, and it probably costs them like a fraction to make this anime compared to Kingsglaive, which is just this like super realistic animated CG thing. And the anime is so much better. So if you're a Final Fantasy 15 fan, and if I haven't just ruined it with spoilers, go watch Brotherhood instead. Final Fantasy 15 Brotherhood, and skip Kingsglaive. That is on Netflix. Brotherhood is free on YouTube if you want to check that out. So with that said, those are my side slurps this past week. Oh man, I love Final Fantasy 15. So good.
Final Fantasy for
so
life.
Good. And then afterwards, dude, Final Fantasy 7 remake is waiting for me on my shelf, and I'm
there you go.
Dive into that. Have you played that?
No, I haven't actually.
Oh really? I thought you did, dude. I think it's like down to $30 now. You can pick a brand new copy up for cheap.
Well, I just picked up Final Fantasy X remake, so
ooh, 10. I love 10 with Titus and Yuna.
Yeah.
Nice. So you dove into it. Have you started playing it?
Yeah, I'm still really I'm in the beginning still very much, but I'm
So
getting
you haven't
there.
played Blitzball yet?
I think I did. I think I'm past that, but I'm still very much in the beginning.
10's one of my favorites. 7, 8, 10, and now 15 are my favorite Final Fantasies.
Nice.
So, what are yours?
Dude, I'm so behind in Final Fantasy. It's like I played Final Fantasy 10 and I've also played Kingdom Hearts. So
I never played Kingdom Hearts. I heard
you've got to try it. If you're into Final Fantasy, you've got to at least dive into Kingdom Hearts a little bit because they reference they have Final
Mickey
Fantasy
and
characters in
Goofy
it. Yes.
in it?
It's a combination of Final Fantasy and Disney characters.
Why? Why Disney though? Why Disney characters? Why? Doesn't
It's
that
like
make it
bringing
kinda
kids into
hokey?
the Final Fantasy realm, basically.
Yeah, but doesn't make it kind of like really campy and not in a cool way, but like in a I'm Mickey.
It's just silly.
Final Fantasy. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to offend you.
You're not offending me.
Okay, cool.
No.
All right. I'll
No, Kingdom
I
Hearts
like
is
the
pretty
Goofy
fun.
movie. Goofy movie is my favorite Disney movie.
Kingdom Hearts
so-
1 and 2 are good. I thought Kingdom Hearts 3 was a little like disappointing because everyone was waiting forever for it. It finally came out, and then when I played it, I was kind of like, really? Like, this is Kingdom Hearts 3? But I don't know. That was just me. But
All right. I'll try it out.
Kingdom Hearts
sometime.
1 and 2 were definitely the bomb.
All right. Well, I'll try it if you play Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've been waiting to just see what everyone's jaw-dropping about Cloud for.
Excellent. Cool, man. With that said, those are our side slurps for this past week. Ladies and gents, thanks for sticking with us through that. And now we're going to review Blue Velvet. That's right. Blue Velvet. Yes, Blue Velvet is a 1986 neo-noir mystery thriller film written and directed by David Lynch.
Neo-noir.
Blending a psychological horror with film noir. The film stars our good pal Kyle MacLachlan from the Dune movie, the 1984 Dune movie, which is also a David Lynch film. It also
Where's
stars-
Sting when you need him?
Yes. Yeah, why didn't Sting do the music for this? It also stars Isabella Rossellini, Dennis Hopper from our old movie that we reviewed, Super Mario Bros. He played King Koopa. And Laura Dern from Jurassic Park. And and is named after the 1951 song of the same name. The film concerns a young college student who, returning home to visit his ill father, discovers a severed human ear in a field that leads to him uncovering a vast criminal conspiracy and entering a romantic relationship with a troubled lounge singer. The screenplay of Blue Velvet had been passed around multiple times in the late 1970s and early 1980s, with several major studios declining it due to its strong sexual and violent content. After the failure of his 1984 Dune, Lynch made attempts at developing a more personal story, somewhat characteristic of the surrealist style displayed in his first film, Eraserhead of 1977. Okay, man, Blue Velvet time. Let's get weird. Let's get strange. Let's get neo-noir-y. You've seen this film, right, Adam?
I have seen this film before, and that David Lynch actually took a pay cut to have full artistic control on this film because his previous film Dune was such a flop that originally the budget for this film was supposed to be $10 million, but he took a pay cut from, I believe it's Dino De Laurentiis. He was going to have a $10 million budget on this film, but because Dino De Laurentiis had interest in Blue Velvet, but David Lynch wanted full artistic control, so he took a pay cut. And the only condition that De Laurentiis, he insisted that the film be no more than 2 hours long, and he also made it a $6 million budget. And so Blue Velvet, that's why the film is exactly 2 hours long.
Interesting. Wait, so why was it $6 million then? Because even though he took a pay cut, it was still $6 million?
It was going to be 10 million, and then they cut it down to 6 million. I think it's just the agreement was so that David Lynch could have artistic control.
Okay, gotcha. It did seem like throughout the film, this isn't a knock because I've been there when producing my zero budget films. It did seem like they were kind of tiptoeing around some things and trying to cut corners when it came to expensive things. Like, for instance, that one car chase where it ended up being Laura Dern's, well, I guess ex-boyfriend was chasing him. I thought they were totally gonna like smash into the car, the boyfriend car or whatever, or hit it, or there was gonna be like a flipped exploding car or something like that. And then it didn't happen. I'm like, oh, well, I guess I couldn't afford that to explode a car or something or crash into it.
There's some cut scenes that are included in the Criterion version of the film. There's all kinds of extended scenes that are included on the Blu-ray. There's interviews and things like that are included on the Blu-ray. Of course, Criterion includes all kinds of extra stuff in their releases. Excellent. But it's cool to know that there are extra clips and things like that. There's all kinds of extra stuff for the Criterion version of Blue Velvet. I sound like a advertisement on film. Like, hey, pick up the Criterion version of Blue Velvet.
Well,
but for real,
thank you, Adam. I'll pick up the Blu-ray. But I want to know, how did Blue Velvet make you feel? How did it make you feel the first time you watched it, and how did it make you feel the most recent time you watched it?
Yeah, let's dive into that. So with this movie, I gotta say, honestly, my love for David Lynch and all of the movies that he makes, I think really stemmed from me watching this movie, because when I first learned about David Lynch, I was probably in college when I was studying for my bachelor's degree, it's really the definition of when I was in what I call or consider film school, because when I went to community college, that was kind of the start of what we could call film school, but that was community college, and that was me first learning about movies and things like that. But film school, when I was starting to get my bachelor's degree, when I first moved to Chicago, that's when I really first started learning about David Lynch and started making friends who really knew about a lot of different filmmakers and things like that. And I had one friend in particular who really loved David Lynch, so he really got me to start watching his movies. And Blue Velvet was the first movie of David Lynch's that I watched. And I don't know if really at the time I really understood what David Lynch's style was. I didn't. But this movie really opened my eyes with my friend's help, my friend Ethan. With his help, I really started to understand that David Lynch is a one-of-a-kind director in terms of style. And I think you really don't see his experimental sort of style from the beginning of this movie, because David Lynch has a tendency to really get experimental and very strange with a lot of different things. He does some very strange things that you could see in the television shows that he does with Twin Peaks, or with the movie Eraserhead that he did. He does very, very strange things, and he does strange things in this movie too. But just from the start of this movie, it looks so beautiful, so smooth. You're getting this very nice introduction of like this classic suburban neighborhood.
You're Sky and the roses.
Yeah.
Beautiful day.
Yes, and it's just, you're getting this nice, the background music of Blue Velvet by Bobby Vinton, and it all just meshes so nicely. And to be completely honest, I always think when I start this movie, it's just like, I wouldn't want it, or I wouldn't have it any other way, and I could just watch this movie just 10 times over and over again with that opening, because it's just so well done. And I think I wouldn't even associate that opening necessarily with the style of this movie. And I think that's what makes this movie so fantastic, because the way the movie starts is kind of like, I'm not expecting this movie to turn so dark or to turn so dramatic. It opens with such a beautiful day. What a beautiful neighborhood. Look at the roses. Look at the firemen waving at me. Look at this nice suburban street. It does. And it just, with the firemen waving at you, everything's going all nice, suburban, and then all of a sudden this guy's having a stroke while watering his flowers, and then it's still going smooth. He's having a stroke, but there's no one there really to see it. Yeah, the dog's just lapping up the water from the hose. Yeah, and then from that, then the camera just starts to zoom in on this ear in the grass with ants on it. And it's just, we're just left wondering, well, what's going to happen to that guy who just had a stroke? Did he just die? Like, we're all kind of assuming that this dude just had a stroke, and we're just left in Pleasantville here. That's another movie that looks just like this. Side note, but
also a great movie.
But regardless of that, we realize that we get introduced to Kyle MacLachlan's character, Jeffrey Beaumont, and we find out that was his dad who just had a stroke. And Jeffrey Beaumont ends up going to the hospital to see his dad, and his dad is very much in a critical condition, and who knows how that's really going to end up. His dad doesn't really show up for much else of the film, but Jeffrey Beaumont does, because he is the protagonist, and Jeffrey Beaumont is going to get to the bottom of this case as he goes back to the house where the stroke happened and sees that ear in the grass. And that is really the introduction to the entire film of why is there an ear in the lawn, and whose ear does this belong to, and how can we figure out who's cutting off ears, or what is going on here. And all of that happening, just the opening of this criminal case, all of that to me is just the introduction of like, I am so invested in this. Not only do I personally just love, crime movies and things like that, but I love the way that David Lynch ties it together. I love the way that Kyle MacLachlan is selling me this character. And I love the
lead, really good lead.
I love the look of the movie. I love, the time. Everything about this movie just transitions so beautifully from one scene to the next. And I could just keep going. What did you think, DJ? Have you seen Blue Velvet before this, or you were talking about you fell asleep? But okay, tell me about being awake and watching Blue Velvet.
Yeah. So during the times I was awake back in college, I remember feeling real weird. I think I remember waking up to the part where it's like, Heineken, fuck that shit. Pabst Blue Ribbon.
That's the line, man. And you can never drink beer the same way again.
Yeah. The thing is, like, I didn't have a PBR until I think my friend Jay got me my first PBR when I lived in Minneapolis. And I remember being like, it's PBR. And then I drank, I'm like, that's pretty good. But I didn't connect Dennis Hopper saying, Pabst Blue Ribbon, like screaming it.
I also love the first time that Kyle MacLachlan, his character Jeff, mentions that he drinks Heineken too to Laura Dern. And he's just like, you like Heineken? And she's just like, it's all right. And it's like, what do you drink? And she's like, my parents drink Bud. And he's like, the king of beers. He's just like he's so not into
unenthused.
it.
Yeah. Also, I'm not a man that just drinks one beer. Yeah, I mean, like, I like tasting a bunch of different types of beer. There are men that like, well, I guess men and women. There are people that just choose one drink and then that's just what they drink.
Yep.
I have like a good like maybe 3 or 4. I kind of rotate to buy at home, but like. I don't know. I mean, I have like maybe a go-to, but like I enjoy a bunch of different kind of beers. Yeah. So if crazy psychopathic Dennis Hopper character, not Dennis Hopper, but Frank Booth asked me, if he was pinning me to the friggin' bar door and he was saying, what do you like to drink? And I'll be like, well, anything you like to drink, Frank. Fuck that shit.
I like IPAs.
Yeah, IPAs. Anyway, I remember waking up during that part. I remember feeling really strange and almost feeling like I was watching something in another reality, like kind of like the way I felt when I first watched Clockwork Orange. I felt like I was like in another dimension, like things were meant to seem pleasant, especially like Clockwork Orange, where you hear like singing in the rain and there's pleasantness, but there's also like deep demented darkness underneath it all that's being sandwiched within the nicey pleasantness. And that's what I kind of felt like this. And definitely with now it's just complete. And I totally agree with you. It's like during like the crime parts where, you see Kyle MacLachlan and Laura Dern, Jeffrey and Sandy figuring out stuff together. And it's so funny that her dad is named John Williams. So I'm like, he composed Star Wars. Yeah. Detective John Williams. And it's those parts are really like definitely intriguing, definitely get me going, definitely like, oh yeah, I wonder what this ear, Van Gogh, what? And like, he screamed, do it for Van Gogh. I'm like, oh, okay. And then that makes sense later because like that was her husband's ear. And it was something that was like definitely exciting, thrilling, for sure. And there was parts though, I mean, and this is definitely more than half, where it was a very unsettling. And keep in mind, I'm not saying bad unsettling. Art is good art when it provokes a feeling, whether it's a good feeling or bad feeling. That's what good art does. It provoked me feeling very unsettled, almost disturbed. It disturbed me.
Well, that was something I wanted to ask you about too, because I know on this show we've talked about different movies, and we've also talked more or less about in contemporary society the thought of, well, there's cancel culture now is what we call it, and how things that are being put up currently or how things that have been put up in the past are now being taken down because they are not appropriate currently, or they are invoking certain feelings for people that they are just not appropriate to stay on current, on the current radar of life. They just took off a couple episodes of SpongeBob SquarePants because they're not appropriate. One episode in particular where Patrick and SpongeBob talk about how Mr. Krabs, who's suffering from midlife crisis, essentially, he's talking about how he's too old to do anything. And one of their ways of having fun with Mr. Krabs is Patrick saying, well, I guess you're going to miss the panty raid. And so that episode is too inappropriate now for them to say, well, we can't keep airing that on television. We're going to take that down. They haven't completely gotten rid of the episode. They haven't said we're going to erase that from the SpongeBob history or anything.
That's a kid's show, though, right?
Exactly. So they're just not airing it on television.
Yeah, this is different, though, when like someone puts a rated R. It's like, you're going to see some crazy shits. So here's your warning. Go forth at your own risk.
And I think, too, that it's not like Frank Booth in this movie is the protagonist or anything. In this movie in particular, he is the antagonist. Yeah. And that's one thing I actually...
not advocating for the abuse or advocating for, sexual abuse and he made Dorothy a sex slave, and he's a madman. He's a villain.
Yeah. If anything, this movie is very,
as he says in Speed.
Yeah, this movie is very much showing like this is not what you're supposed to do. It is very much shining the light that you should not be doing this at all.
Even Jeffrey, after Dorothy asked him to hit him while they're around the time they're having sex, and it's almost like a sadomasochist relationship, or at least briefly. And he has that moment later where he's sitting on his bed and he's just like thinking about how he hit her, even though she told him to hit her. He was still, deeply, he disturbed himself by participating in that, even though she said it's okay and it's not her fault, but that just wasn't him. He felt so horrible about hurting her, even though she asked for it. Again, not her fault, but it didn't seem like he was that kind of guy. He didn't want to hurt her. He didn't want to hurt her, and he didn't want to participate in that. And again, it's not any judgment on the people who do like that, but that was a moment that was like, oh man, like whenever, I don't know, like with anything, it's just like whenever you have this like image or code that you want to live up to as a person, at least I do. And when something doesn't go according to that code, it feels like this destruction or a destruction of part of yourself, where it's like, why did I do that? Who am I? Sort of a thing. And it seems like it could be very self-centered, but I think it was partly Jeffrey thinking about himself and what kind of man he wants to be. And even though she said that she wanted it, he didn't want to participate in it. And it doesn't make her bad or crazy or anything like that. She was being forced to be a sex slave. She was going through a really tough time.
Right.
And it's also this feeling of like, he probably felt like she's already being tortured. She's already being put through hell, and he didn't want to put her through any more of it.
Yeah. And there was a great balance of character conflict in this movie between him having this sort of relationship with the character Dorothy, trying to help her, and him having a sort of relationship with Laura Dern's character, Sandy. He's trying to balance both of these sort of relationships, and then he sort of gets found out later when he's going out with Sandy, and then you just see Dorothy's character just standing there nude in her front yard, and it's just this real climactic scene of her just standing there needing help.
Here's my thoughts on that. I don't think I may sound like a dick, but I don't think Jeffrey did anything wrong. And Sandy, and she forgave him. She didn't blame him. She wasn't hypocritical. It just hurt her feelings when she saw Dorothy all over him. But the thing is that like he wasn't committed to either one of them. He wasn't like, oh, I'm your boyfriend, I'm not going to date. He didn't commit himself to either one of them. And Sandy had another guy too. Sandy had two guys at the same time as well. So, and that's probably one of the reasons why her character forgave him. She's like, well, I did the same thing, so how can I blame this guy? Jeffrey was like, playing with fire, but I don't think he was doing anything wrong per se.
It was also the
Plus,
scene.
he already went after Sandy, and she told him no.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I have a boyfriend, because he was pursuing her first, and he's like, all right, well, then Dorothy wants me, so
Yeah, it was also the scene where he went to help Dorothy when she was standing nude in her yard. That was when Mike was going to try and beat him up.
Yeah.
So it was just like this crazy climactic, all of them coming
sorry,
together.
Man, I didn't know.
Yeah. Sorry, man.
What is that, your mom? Oh, sorry, man. I'm sorry. He's like, it's okay. Like, what? What? Okay. He just like immediately, he didn't even have any context with it. He's like, oh, naked lady that seems really like she's in trouble. I'm sorry, man. I'm so sorry. It's okay.
It's like,
yeah, it just seems
just
like
go away.
Mike suddenly just understood without having anybody tell him what was going on. But yeah, Mike looked like he was about ready to kick his ass.
He's like drinking a beer, just like, yeah, come on, man. You think you can take my girl? And she's like, oh, sorry.
But yeah, so with this, there's a lot of elements in it that are very unsettling, very disturbing. I don't think that makes it a immoral movie or anything like that. That's not what I was getting at. It's more of like, and I don't think it's a bad movie for that either.
Well, I didn't necessarily think that you were getting at that. I just wanted to bring it up because I think that it's a subject for a lot of people, and with a lot of content that's out there right now, it's kind of like, do we keep it or do we not? And I
think it's something that people should definitely include in the rating. It's like, include strong sexual content that may be disturbing, something like that. That way, if someone has some sort of like PTSD from a very traumatic event, they can like, oh, not gonna watch that,
right?
So they could choose, they can choose, but it still should exist, it still should be available if one would want to watch it. Like you said, Adam, it's not about promoting that awful abuse and behavior. I mean, Frank's a murderer.
If anything, I think it's a learning experience as to like learn that you should never let this happen, or learn that like this is what you should watch out for in terms of this is not how anyone should ever act. Like, don't ever let people act like this. And if you see someone acting like this, then go tell somebody or call the cops or something, because people like this should not exist. And I'm not saying Dennis Hopper shouldn't exist, but he's showing a prime example of people who are evil and just like 10 out of 10 satanic level of human existence. Like, this is the wrong type of person to have in your life.
Yeah. And I was going to say that there's a couple movies that it reminded me of. It's almost like a mesh of this. Well, first, it's like this is much more of a extreme version of like The Graduate. The Graduate
really?
Coming home from college, and like, he's sleeping with someone's wife, and that's naughty, that's bad. But it turns into this like crazy ordeal, this crazy noir story. And the deeper and the deeper that he got, because like it all started with an ear. Well, really, it all started with his dad getting sick. His dad had a stroke. Yeah. And then he found the ear. And then it's like, well, I'm just going to turn his ear in. Okay, son, good job. Don't let me handle blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, ooh, well, I'm more curious. I'm going to look deeper into it. It kind of reminded me of Stanley Kubrick's last film, Eyes Wide Shut, starring Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. And that movie, in a way, has a similar thread or through line, where it seems like almost kind of like an everyday thing, or just like a little weird at first, but then like the deeper and deeper and deeper and you go, it's like, oh my God, I am super deep now. I can't get out. There's no turning back now. I have to keep moving forward through it. And that's where I think I realized that it was after the Pabst Blue Ribbon part where, all these guys are like hitting him and punching Jeffrey. And it's like, man, he's stuck. He's trapped in this. How does he get out now? I'm like, dude, it just started with an ear. Oh my God. So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't, and I guess I could have like looked it up, but I figured it'd be fun to just ask you on the podcast, which was, I was confused about two things. First one was Detective Williams working with the Yellow Man and I'm doing quotes, Yellow Man, if you haven't seen the movie, it's a white guy dressed in a yellow suit. That's why they call him the Yellow Man. Was Detective Williams friends or working with the Yellow Man? Because when Jeffrey saw him come to his house when he went to pick up Sandy for the date, he saw the Yellow Man. This is after he already talked to Detective Williams about everything he knows and the pictures that he took, which include the Yellow Man. And when the Yellow Man approached the door and Detective Williams looked at Jeffrey, he's like, something like, okay, settle down. And it seemed like, is this a crooked cop? Because they didn't really explain it later. Like, how did he know the Yellow Man?
Detective Williams and the Yellow Man did work together. I mean, the Yellow Man was a cop, but you see that Jeffrey showed Detective Williams the undercover photographs that the Yellow Man was working with Frank. So that the Yellow Man had given Frank, I can't remember exactly what they were passing off to each other, but like that the Yellow Man gave the guy with the crocodile case information and things like that. Detective Williams had knowledge that the Yellow Man was kind of like double crossing the cops or something like that.
But the way that Detective Williams looked at Jeffrey just seemed very maniacal, almost like, keep your mouth shut, kid. It wasn't like, hey, I got this, bud. It wasn't like that. If he'd said that, I would have been like, oh, well, he knows that this other cop is a bad guy and he just needs to find an opportunity to stick him. He needs to find proof so he could stick him. It was like, settle down, Jeffrey. It was kind of like, it was like, hey, yeah, I know I'm a bad guy too, so keep your mouth shut, kid. That's what it felt like to me. Yeah. It just seemed off. It just seemed like, what do you know, Detective Williams? And he kept telling, him and, Sandy better not be involved in this, and looking at Sandy and she's like, what's wrong, Dad? He's like, nothing better be wrong. And it's like, okay, is he a bad guy? Yeah. And then at the end, after Jeffrey shoots Dennis Hopper's character, Frank, he's all Mr. Comforting. He's like, it's okay, Jeffrey. Like, it's all over. Like, he was like suddenly Mr. Warmth, It just,
Detective Williams only tells Jeffrey to like stay quiet when they're in the house before they leave in the end, because I think he's kind of like, keep your mouth shut, because like Detective Williams is kind of like, I'm going undercover to follow them when he's going to go up to Dorothy's apartment.
I see.
It was like a stealth operation kind of thing.
Okay. So here's the other thing I was confused by. And this includes the end when Frank shows up as the quote unquote well-dressed man. So he was the well-dressed man the whole time, right? Because I thought that Jeffrey took pictures of the well-dressed man and Frank at the same scene. But at the end, you see Frank take off a fake mustache and a fake toupee to look like the well-dressed man.
I know, but Jeffrey specifically says he's disguised as the well-dressed man.
He says that Frank is in the pictures when he talked to Detective Williams.
No, he says in the end that Frank is disguised as the well-dressed man, or that Frank is dressed up as the well-dressed man.
I see. I was just confused because I thought one of the photos that Jeffrey took that you saw both Frank and the well-dressed man at the same place at the same time.
I don't know if you see both of them in the same picture, but I know you see a picture of Frank and like the yellow jacket guy, I think. And then there's another one where you see the yellow jacket guy and the well-dressed man. I don't know if you see them both in the same picture. Now I'll have to go back and see this again, but
because I was confused. Like, how? Okay. Also, here's another thing. How was the Yellow Man standing up when part of his brain was sticking out? It looked like he was dead, but standing up just fine. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I don't think he was dead because, he still swung his arm.
Yeah, at the light.
Yeah.
So he was just kind of brain dead? Because his brain was exposed.
Yeah, a little bit.
So was he just kind of like not there mentally, but his body was still working, sort of?
I guess so, because he still had a reaction to whatever that noise was, like when the radio went off or something, and like he swung his arm. Yeah.
It almost looked like he was hanging by a noose, but there was no noose. That's what it seemed like to me. Yeah, it was crazy to me.
Yeah, because he falls over when Frank shoots him. He falls over.
Yeah, definitely. So when it came to, there's some notes here about interpretations with the film. I have written here, throughout the film, a dream Sandy had alluded to, which she says, I guess it means there's trouble until the robins come, when she's referring to her dream about robins, in which the world was full of darkness and turmoil until a group of robins were set free, unleashing blinding light and love. Lightning is a strong symbolic aspect of this film, illustrated in the second shot, which is lit from above before fading out, representing a return to normalcy. Did you notice also that there was a candle that was flickering really hard? This happened when like Jeffrey and Dorothy were having sex, and this happened a couple other times too throughout the film. And the last like almost kind of like a light flickering until it went out. I think it was just like a normal light that was right after Frank got shot, and Williams and Sandy came to the apartment and were like, it's over. And then all of a sudden I thought the electricity went out, but it was just like a light that just went out. And I guess it was like a symbolic thing. It almost kind of like lights out, it's over, or something like that, I suppose. Did you catch that? What did you think of that?
I didn't catch that. No.
Well, yeah, it was right after the standoff. I was just say standoff in Dorothy's apartment at the end. But yeah, it's very interesting. I'm not sure I quite get it. I'll have to go back and check it out. But anyway, despite Blue Velvet's initial appearance as a mystery, the film operates on a number of thematic levels. The film owes a large debt to 1950s film noir, containing and exploring such conventions as femme fatale, a seemingly unstoppable villain, and the questionable moral outlook of the hero, as well as the unusual use of shadowy, sometimes dark cinematography. Blue Velvet represents and establishes Lynch's famous askew vision and introduces several common elements of Lynch's work, some of which would later become his trademarks, including distorted characters, a polarized world, and debilitating damage to the skull or brain. Does any of that happen, Adam, in Twin Peaks? I haven't seen Twin Peaks, but you've seen all of it.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Some brainage.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, on that note, I will say in the end of Blue Velvet, it's very interesting to say that I did learn that when Frank, Dennis Hopper's character, gets shot and he is laying on the ground, the matter of brain that is on the ground is actual real brain.
What? That was real brain?
That is real brain.
How? Why?
David Lynch has connections, and he got real brain matter to use on this film. So it is
from where? Someone's like, hey, you can have some of my brain.
He got it from some, I don't know what connection he had or what hospital. I think it was like some German person or hospital or something that like mailed him brain matter that he could use. But it was real brain organ that they spread out on the ground.
Oh, my God. If I was Dennis Hopper and I had to lay near that, I'd be like, fuck no, I am not laying near real brain. Fuck you, David Lynch.
I mean,
no fucking way.
Like the other, like the yellow man who's standing there with like brain exposed and things like that was not real brain. But but Frank,
the brain by Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, when he's laying there on the ground and he's dead and he just had his brain busted out, like that was real brain matter on the ground.
There's tons of things you can make look like brain. Why would you do that, David Lynch? It's like Ozzy.
Because David Lynch is dedicated.
It's not as bad as Ozzy doing this, but it's almost like Ozzy biting the head off the bat at a live show all those years ago.
No,
it's like, okay, we get you. You're really committed, dude, but like that doesn't need to happen.
I think David Lynch using real brain is pretty.
You like it?
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Not me, man. You're brain. You're the brain of this operation.
You know, another interesting fact is that for the ear prop in the beginning, apparently. It wasn't a real ear necessarily, but apparently the effects artist was using like a silicone molding of a real person's ear. So he was using his ear originally for the first molding, and then David Lynch was telling him, no, that's too small. You have really small ears. And so they used someone else's ear who had a larger ear, and they molded that. And then after he did that, David Lynch was getting his hair trimmed, apparently. And so he used actual hair of David Lynch's in the casting of the ear. So on the ear, there's David Lynch's hair.
Gross. Oh, David Lynch. Get real, as he would say. Anyway,
he is a character.
He is. So moving into symbolism. Symbolism, as we've noticed, was used very heavily in Blue Velvet. The most consistent symbolism in the film is an insect motif introduced at the end of the first scene when the camera zooms in on a well-kept suburban lawn until it unearths a swarming underground nest of disgusting bugs. This is generally recognized as a metaphor for the seedy underworld that Jeffrey will soon discover under the surface of his own suburban Reagan-esque paradise. The severed ear he finds is being overrun by black ants and the bug motif is recurrent throughout the film, most notably in the bug-like gas mask that Frank wears, but also the excuse that Jeffrey uses to gain access to Dorothy's apartment. He claims to be an insect exterminator. Bugs. One of Frank's sinister accomplices is also consistently identified through the yellow jacket he wears. Yellow jacket like bug, possibly reminiscent of the name of a type of wasp. Finally, a robin eating a bug on a fence becomes a topic of discussion in the last scene of the film, as we mentioned earlier. So yeah, also the severed ear that we were talking about that Jeffrey discovers is also a key symbolic element, leading Jeffrey into danger. Indeed, just as Jeffrey's troubles begin, the audience is treated to a nightmarish sequence in which the camera zooms into the canal of the severed, decomposing ear. Notably, the camera does not reemerge from the ear canal until the end of the film when we zoom out of Jeffrey's ear. So yeah, it was we ended it like we began it, and it's on a nice summer day. But yeah, and also like this film, it's a cult classic, very critically acclaimed. It did have mixed receptions, as we mentioned earlier. But the film, it has a rating of 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, and that's based on 77 reviews with an average rating of 8.8 out of 10. So rated very highly. Going through film school, tons of people would always just say how great Blue Velvet is. And Roger Ebert praised Isabella Rossellini's performance as convincing and courageous, but criticized how she was depicted in the film, even accusing David Lynch of misogyny. Quote, degraded, slapped around, humiliated, and undressed in front of the camera. And when you ask an actress to endure those experiences, you should keep your side of the bargain by putting her in an important film. Well, Ebert in later years came to consider Lynch a great filmmaker. His negative view of Blue Velvet remained unchanged after he revisited it in 21st Century. So recently. Wow. Well, not recently, but within the past 21 years.
Yeah.
The film is now considered a masterpiece. The film also has a score of 76 out of 100 on Metacritic, based on 15 critics, and it's indicated as generally favorable reviews. Looking back in his Guardian Observer review, critic Philip French wrote, the film is wearing well and has attained a classic status without becoming respectable or losing its sense of danger. Mark Commode walked out on the film and gave the film a poor review upon its release, but revised his view on the film over time. In 2016, he remarked, as a film critic, it taught me that when a film finally gets under your skin and really provokes a visceral reaction, you have to be very careful about assessing it. I didn't walk out on Blue Velvet because it was a bad film. I walked out on it because it was a really good film. The point was, at the time, I wasn't good enough for it. I had a very similar reaction. Granted, I didn't walk out of my living room when I was watching it, but it was very unsettling. It was very disturbing. And that's because it was a powerful film.
Yeah.
And not saying... And as we said before, it's not saying what was done to Dorothy or Isabella Rossellini's character Dorothy, that those things are awesome or should be done or they're cool or that's the way you treat women. It wasn't that. I mean, even Kyle MacLachlan's character was feeling really guilty about the things that she was telling him to do in a masochist way. Even that was like, oh, I feel terrible for that, even though she told him to do that. And it was... I don't know. I mean, it has to be even harder to watch for other people that have gone through trauma that I have not gone through. And it was still unsettling for me to watch. And I can't imagine for someone who has trauma that could be similar to this, similar to the character Dorothy has gone through.
Right.
That must be devastating. But as, what was it, Philip French, as he said, that it was not because of a bad film, it's because it was a very powerful film, or a really good film, as he said. So, this is Mark Kermode. That's what he said. But yeah, it's tough to watch. It's tough to watch at times. Still deserves its place, I think, in film history, in my opinion.
Just don't make friends with people that act like Frank Booth. I mean,
yeah, and it's okay to drink PBR. It doesn't mean you're Frank Booth. So, perhaps Blue Ribbon.
Absolutely.
Well, with that said, do you have any other factoids before we move on to our final verdict, dude?
I thought it was interesting as I was looking into the facts of this movie. I thought it was very interesting to see that as David Lynch was listening to Roy Orbison's greatest hits, picking out music for this movie, he ended up using the song In Dreams for one of the more climactic scenes of this movie when they were at the character Ben's apartment, I believe, the place that was deemed, quote, "this is it," that Frank Booth shows up to. And it's just a very crazy scene that I will not use the actual phrasing Frank Booth uses when he's at that apartment, but they sing the song In Dreams. Ben lip syncs the song In Dreams with a work lamp, which is just a crazy scene. But originally David Lynch didn't want to use the song In Dreams. He actually wanted to use the song Crying by Roy Orbison, which I find absolutely fascinating because he uses the song Crying in a later film of his, Mulholland Drive, which he actually uses a Spanish version of the song Crying. It's much later in the film Mulholland Drive. This song is sung in basically like an opera theater. But spoiler alert, check out the movie Mulholland Drive. But yeah, I thought that was really cool. He must be a big Roy Orbison fan, but Roy Orbison's awesome. Who doesn't want to go listen to Roy Orbison? Excellent.
Just a little tidbit here. The film inspired pop singer Lana Del Rey to record a cover version of Bobby Vinton's classic rendition of the song Blue Velvet in 2012. So that's a little trivia tidbit for you.
Blue Velvet inspiring everybody.
Lana Del Rey.
And then Lana Del Rey gets inspired to be like Dennis Hopper.
And then someone gets inspired to make a Blue Velvet movie from the Lana Del Rey inspired song from the original movie Blue Velvet.
I take back what I just said about being inspired to be like Frank Booth, but
art imitating art.
Yeah, let no one be inspired to be Frank Booth. But Lana Del Rey, you go, girl. You go ahead.
Girl.
You go ahead and you sing that Blue Velvet song. I'll have to go check that out now.
She probably did a good job. I like Lana Del Rey.
Yeah.
So with that said, let's move on to our final verdict, our slurps up, slurps down section. That's right, folks. This is time where we tell you possibly repeat stuff of what we've been saying about the film, and we say it's a good slurps up, which means we like it and we recommend it, or slurps down, which means we don't like it, we don't recommend it, and maybe some shades of gray in between. Not the movie. Anyway, this is Blue Velvet. Adam, what did you think of Blue Velvet? What's your final verdict?
I gotta give it a slurps up because David Lynch is the bomb.com and because Blue Velvet is fantastic. A little bit explicit, a little bit crazy, and don't ever act like Dennis Hopper did in this movie. Not because he's a bad actor, but because Frank Booth is a horrible man. But Kyle MacLachlan's awesome, so let him be your inspiration and let him be your guide like he's Jiminy Cricket. Slurps up all the time for Blue Velvet.
If you want to wash your mouth out of Frank Booth, go watch Super Mario Bros. Afterwards and watch Dennis Hopper play King Koopa.
Goomba!
But anyway, yeah, I'm with you, bud. I give it a slurps up. I'm gonna say that I'm okay. I don't need to ever watch this film again. Sorry, but I don't need to ever watch this again. I am glad I watched it though. It's not my kind of film when it comes to those kind of scenes. I'm glad to have seen it. I'm glad I watched it. I honored all the storytelling that went through it. It was there to all the script, the direction, the actors, the editing, cinematography, all of it was great. It's just not my kind of movie that I like to revisit. But with that, I still give it a slurps up. I am shaken or unsettled from it because it's a good movie. It's a powerful movie. It's just not my cup of tea. But with that, I still recommend it. If you have not seen Blue Velvet, please go see it. I give it a slurps up as well. Period.
Bum 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 bum
bum bum bum bum bum bum bum. All right. Woo! That was our Blue Velvet episode. Episode 49. So well, with that, let's move on to Soul Plug time. That's a time where we tell you, please go check out some of the stuff that we do. Besides Screen Slurps, me and Adam are best pals, but we still do other things as well. We're not attached to the hip, but we still love each other.
I mean, we can arrange that, but
bro up. Nah, I'm good. Here, how's this? I'll give you a Dash Gerhardt blow up doll, and you can. I mean, he'll have clothes and stuff, and like crazy hair and glasses, and you can sew him to the side of your jeans.
That's not the same.
Oh, all right. Well, maybe
good try,
if he... We'll try. He'll play video games with you. Anyway, so Soul Plug time. Soul Plug for me, Dash Garrett, is my... I have a Dungeons & Dragons actual play show on Twitch and on YouTube called Journey Punks. It's 2 words. Journey, like the band, but not the band. And then Punks, Journey, second word Punks. So we stream every Monday and Thursday. Every other Monday is D&D night, where we go into campaign. It is set in the Arcana Punk world of Eberron, which is sort of like this steampunky world with still Final Fantasy traditional stuff in it, but also has dinosaurs and airships and magic tech, trains, rock and roll, ninjas, pirates. It's just a big mix. It's awesome. And yeah, we stream every Monday at 7 p.m. Central Time, every Thursday at the same time as well, 7 p.m. And every other week we do the D&D night, and then the other weeks we do a talk show called J-Punk Junk, which basically we end up just kind of podcasting, but we talk about the D&D campaign. So check that out at twitch.tv/journeypunks, or on YouTube, just search Journey Punks as well. Adam, what would you like to soul plug, my friend?
You can catch me on Twitter, on SoundCloud, on Instagram at Adam Meisner. I'm also on Twitch at /A Meisner, and I play music. I record originals and cover songs. I put them online, and you can check that out. You can just let me know what you want to hear, and I will put it up there.
I just thought of something. Adam, you would make a great bard as a D&D class. The only thing is, I've never played a campaign where I've never DM'd a campaign where there was a bard, and I've never been in a campaign where there's a bard. Never played a bard.
Could I be like a combo class, like a bard necromancer?
Yeah. Well, that would be, I guess, a warlock. Yeah. I guess they've been adding new classes, so there might be a necromancer too. But you can multi-class. Yeah, you can be
like a bard warlock.
Yeah, bard warlock. Yeah, it seems like a goth rocker or something like that. Like Rob Zombie. And
dig through the ditches and burn through the witches.
Anyway, with that, we'll stop singing Rob Zombie songs if he doesn't come out with us with a lawsuit. And that wraps up for this episode of Screen Slurps, everyone. Thanks for listening, and please be sure to follow us on social media. We release new episodes every Monday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and just about everywhere you can find podcasts on the internet. And please be sure to follow and subscribe to us on those platforms. And if you like our show, please give it a nice 5-star review. It totally helps us out. 5-star review on the Apple Podcast app. It takes like 10 seconds, and it totally helps us. And please please recommend us to everyone in your multiverse. We totally appreciate all of you who continue to listen to us. We do. We know who you are, especially those in India. We love you. Thank you so much. We think you're great. Thank you for being loyal listeners. And yeah, you've been helping our show grow. So please continue that. And we give out love to you telepathically. So closing out, this is Dash Gearhart.
And I'm Adam Meisner.
Slurps up, and we'll catch you all later.
Later.